What's up, everybody? We are back with another WNBA update. After a week of close matchups, we had some Commissioner Cup finals on the line. Things are heating up in more ways than one in the WNBA, so let's dive into it. Before we tip off the first quarter of today's episode, let's run through our Fast Five, the 5 storylines that you may have missed this past week in women's basketball. Number 1, the Commissioner's Cup final is set. The Indiana Fever clinched their first Commissioner's Cup berth, and they will face the Minnesota Lynx in the Commissioner's Cup final. So make sure to watch that game. That will tip off on 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Tuesday, July 1st. Number 2, the Mystics rookies continue to take charge. SoniaCitron had 27 points, 11 rebounds, and drains the game-winning three-point shot in overtime as the Mystics defeat Paige, Bueckers, and the Dallas Wings in a hard-fought, super back-and-forth game. The Mystics are 6-8 on the season, but clearly they have a lot of young talent in SoniaCitron and Kiki Iriafen, who leads the team in 8.6 rebounds a game. Those two, they can continue to build on for the future. Number 3, Jonquel Jones, unfortunately, will be out for the next 4 to 6 weeks. The New York Liberty's star center will be out with an ankle sprain. So the Liberty recently collected a few losses in her absence, losing 3 of their last 4 after going 9-0 to start the season. So will the Liberty be able to remain a top championship contender even without Jonquel Jones? Number 4, the Minnesota Lynx remain on top even when Napheesa Collier has been out. They've continued to lead the charge in the WNBA with a 12-1 record despite losing Napheesa Collier to back pain in Tuesday's game against the Aces. So, is the 2025 WNBA championship the Lynx to lose? We shall see. And last but not least, number 5, the Las Vegas Aces snapped their 3-game losing streak with a win over Caitlin Clark's Indiana Fever, taking them down 89-81 on Sunday. And A'ja Wilson's second game back from being out in concussion protocol, she led the charge with 24 points, 7 rebounds, and 2 assists. All right, let's get into a little bit more in depth into what we saw this past week in the WNBA. I am Caroline Fenton. She is Cassandra Negley. So let's get into our game time, the 4 quarters of the W. Our first quarter, Cass, this is someone that now that we're a month out from WNBA All-Star, maybe this name isn't one that is synonymous with All-Star over the course of her career. This year, she is, and that is Alicia Gray from the Atlanta Dream. Cass, is it fair to say that she is the Dream's key cog this season?
I think she's definitely tops. I spoke to her a couple weeks ago in Atlanta, and you mentioned that All-Star conversation. The All-Star ballots just came out, the first returns for fans. She was 14th on the list. And after talking to her in Atlanta, where she said she won 2 All-Stars in Atlanta, she wants a 3rd and is going for it, she talked about just having the green light in Atlanta and seeing her career blossom, like fans finally knowing who she is. So seeing those returns last week, I feel like that's finally connecting. Her game has completely taken off. She is a leader for the Dream, crushing it without Jordan Canada for a little while, with a whole bunch of new pieces, with a new head coach. And then fans are taking notice and wanting to vote her in, as you said, like finally noticing that. She's flirting with a 50, 40, 90 season, which so is Napheesa Collier if we want to talk potential MVPs. She's definitely a leader for Atlanta, though, and I'm excited because last year, if you remember at All-Star, she won the skills and the 3-point competition, brought home a whole bunch of cash.
So we shall see if she can continue that streak in Indianapolis at WNBA All-Star next month. But looking at Alicia Gray's season so far, she's averaging 20 points a game, 5 rebounds a game, 4 assists a game. She leads the Dream in scoring, and she's been consistently 4th, 5th, 6th in the league in scoring, which of course that shifts and that changes by like the difference of a decimal point. But she has been consistently top 10 in scoring basically this entire season in the league. The Atlanta Dream currently sit at 10-4. They're second in their respective division. They are 4th in the WNBA standings. If the Dream can continue their winning ways and be considered a serious championship contender, should we be talking about Alicia Gray in the MVP conversation?
I think sure. Why not? I want to talk about more guards in the MVP conversation, like annually. I think MVP at this point, like I think we both talked about it, like Collier is obviously taking off with the award.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's talk about all these other players starring for their team, right? And it's so hard for a guard to win. So a player like Alicia Gray, like it's an uphill battle. But certainly what she's doing in Atlanta right now, the efficiency, the scoring, her ability to keep that team running should be talked about.
It's Nafisa Collier's to lose from my perspective now. And I think that anyone that watches and anyone in the WNBA can probably agree that it feels like Nafisa Collier's MVP award to lose. But that doesn't mean that we can't talk about others in the conversation. And when you're looking at the best teams in the league, obviously the Liberty are right up there. Is there a single player that really stands out as the one, motor that keeps that team running? I guess the one name that you could throw in there is Sabrina Ionescu, if we want to consider her in the MVP conversation. But to me, right now, it's Nafisa Collier, and then it's I think it's Alicia Gray in the conversation. I think that Sabrina Ionescu can be in the conversation. Is there anyone that we're missing that's doing for their teams what Nafisa Collier and Alicia Gray have been doing for their respective teams?
I mean, I think Alyssa Thomas is always kind of up there, certainly being in a new spot in Phoenix. You had mentioned right off the top kind of how well the Dream are playing. Mm-hmm. And I do think that's always a consideration. Asia Wilson's playing very well, but certainly much like last year, if the Aces continue to plummet as they have, I don't know that for me as a voter that really makes her an MVP of the league. You
have to be one of the best teams in the league, one of the best players on one of the best teams. And that's just not where the Aces are right now, not solidified in a top 3, 4, or even 5 spot in the league right now.
I mean, I guess you could still talk about maybe Caitlin Clark, like depending on how the Fever season goes, like everything that she does for that team, clearly slumping a little from 3. But the assists, especially in absence of that 3-point shot, there's just so much left to play. And Collier's injury, right? Like how long will she be out? Will that impact her the same way maybe it impacted Caitlin? There's a lot of season left to play.
And the Lynx have been able to stay above water even in Nafisa Collier's absence. Obviously the MVP conversation is going to be an important one, but when we talk about a championship conversation, the teams that are able to overcome whatever adversity it might be. For a lot of teams right now in the WNBA, they're experiencing injuries. That's the adversity that has been plaguing this entire league. Well, the Lynx have been able, at least for right now in the short term, been able to overcome losing their superstar in Nafisa Collier. So obviously, MVP conversation is such a fascinating one and one that we will continue to look into. So moving on from the basketball side of things to the business side of things as we head into the second quarter. As we look at maybe a larger view of the league, not just individual players or individual teams or certain races for awards, it's the future of this league. And a big topic of conversation has been the CBA, has been scheduling. We've had several players come out and be very vocal about scheduling, that there are too many games stacked back to back, that the travel is too long. We mentioned Sabrina Ionescu's injury. Part of the reason, the source of that injury reportedly was a long cross-country flight. And I think the CBA will continue to be a topic of conversation as the league gets more investment, more money, and more attention. But we saw Nneka Ogwumike, who's the president of the WNBA Players Association. She said, and I quote, "We have women out here who know the business and we understand where our league has been and where it's going, and we are prepared. We are prepared, and we don't want to be able to come out here and represent ourselves. We want to be able to come out here and represent ourselves and our value the same way that we do on the court, in our contracts, in our facilities, in the standards of the resources that are available to us." So she asked, in the recent conversation that we've had about the CBA, about players getting more of what they feel that they deserve, what has been kind of your reaction to a lot of the conversation and what comes next from this?
Yeah, right in her comments in our facilities, I think that's a big thing. We've heard it. I think Sylvia Fowles told us it this month. Other players have talked about it for years. They want standard facilities and support. And that helps, right? Like with the scheduling, with injuries, with free agency, I think you're already seeing it normalized. You're seeing it in expansion teams. You know, Kathy Engelbert has said, like, we're going to places and giving teams to places who are investing in this and providing this. And we've heard that from expansion teams too. So that's top, you know, salaries. The CBA should be done. They have said they want it done, I think October, November kind of area. That'll keep free agency on track. The expansion draft on track, the lottery on track, all those kinds of things. Getting out now before All-Star kind of sets up questions that they're going to be asked when the media, all of us, you know, come down to Indianapolis and are able to talk to some of the stars of the league about what they're looking for.
And I think that we've heard from so many different players. Obviously, Nneka Ogwumike being the player representative for the players union. But we've heard it from so many players, whether it's in, you know, post-game press conferences or just comments that they've made with the media. The essence of what so many players are looking for is a fair share, their cut of the growth and the popularity of the WNBA. And that's exactly what they're going to be fighting for in the CBA is, look, we're not asking for the moon. All we're asking for is proper compensation to be heard, to be able to have a voice and to be heard in what we think is fair and what is not fair. And like you said, the facilities are such a massive part of that conversation as well.
Yeah, players came out on Sunday. I believe Sydney Colson was one of them who said the same thing as Nneka, kind of the same line here. Like, we see what you see and what everyone else sees. So if the business is booming on our backs, we want a piece of that.
Anyone would feel that way.
Yeah.
Right? Like you and I, obviously we feel it as fans and observers and people who cover the league. The entire sports world feels the ginormous growth and popularity in this league. So you don't think they feel it? Of course they do. We just saw Sophie Cunningham get 1 million followers on TikTok in the span of a week because she was making headlines. And of course, obviously, everyone knows what I'm talking about. But it's interest in its investment, and anyone would want to fight for their fair share of what they have built. So I think these ongoing conversations around the CBA are going to be incredibly fascinating. And I don't know how you feel, Cass. I feel like the statements, maybe not about scheduling, because there's been a lot of direct call-outs to the commissioner, Kathy Engelbert. Maybe that wasn't received with the most compassion or grace, but just in terms of the CBA and compensation, I feel like the statements that these players have made have been met with a lot of support.
Publicly, yeah, for sure. I think, like, it all comes back to Caitlin because so many fans jumped on when Caitlin came on, but when they found out her rookie salary and Paige's rookie salary and all these rookies, like, I think that was a clicking point because there are a lot of people who are like, oh, I make more than Caitlin Clark makes playing in the W. Salaries have always been a thing. Salaries will go up. It's just a matter of how much. And in terms of investment as well, I think the flip side of it is, how does the WNBA spend this new influx of cash, as well as the teams, and turn around and do it on investment? Because it's not just facilities, right? It's marketing, it's refereeing. We talked about officiating a lot this week. Like, how can we invest in that to make it better for our players? Like, all of this is going to take money. And that's kind of the other side of the business aspect, is like, players are going to deserve more, but there's other areas that might deserve more attention as more people are watching and paying attention to the league.
Have you ever been to Buc-ee's, Cass? Like the massive, ginormous gas stations in the South?
I've heard of it, yes.
So I live in Nashville, for those listening. So, like, there are obviously millions of Buc-ee's across, not millions, a lot of Buc-ee's across, like, Tennessee, Alabama, Florida. It's a Texas thing. And they're massive gas stations. There's, like, hundreds and hundreds of pumps. There's fire barbecue, like, all sorts of snacks. They have retail. Like, if you want to go shop for a brand new wardrobe at a Buc-ee's, you absolutely can, and it's a gas station. But at every Buc-ee's, they have, like, posters with their salaries for, the lower level all the way up to high level. And I saw somebody tweet something like, you're telling me that a general manager at a Buc-ee's in middle of nowhere, Tennessee is making like 5 times what Caitlin Clark is making in her WNBA salary? It is, look, Buc-ee's general manager is get your bag. Good for you. It sounds like a great place to work. But also Caitlin Clark and the rest of the WNBA, get your bag. Yeah. Everybody gets the bag that they deserve. Speaking of a bag they deserve, one woman who knows that she will get the bag that she deserves is Angel Reese as we enter into our halftime segment here on the program. So Angel Reese is not just a baller, a player. She's a businesswoman as well. So there's a lot of conversation about Angel Reese on social media. I have seen a lot of low light reels from Angel Reese on social media, and a lot of people call her rebounds Mebounds. And that's been a term on social media that people use against Angel Reese. Uno reverse card. She just owned all of you because Angel Reese just trademarked the term Mebounds, and she's now selling t-shirts and hats and merchandise with the term Mebounds on it. Get your bag, Angel Reese.
I mean, yeah. The average WNBA career is 2 to 3 years, right? Like, you're not going to be a pro player forever.
Really, 2 to 3 years?
I want to say so, because you think about like all the rookies who don't make teams, or like maybe you make a team, you don't play a lot.
And roster sizes are so small.
Yeah. So Angel Reese is already in year 2, like she'll go beyond that. But if that's the case, like, make your money now. I mean, smart. Part of that business women that Nneka was talking about. Yeah,
exactly. She knows what she wants. She knows how to, make headlines, and she does it. And she's capitalizing on something that somebody turned into like a way to kind of poke fun at Angel Reese. Now she's turning it into a payday. And you know what? Good for you, Angel. I will buy a t-shirt. You can count me in on that one. Okay, third quarter. So much of our conversations will be dominated by the New York Liberty, rightfully so, and the Minnesota Lynx, rightfully so, and the Atlanta Dream, and how they have surged over the last, weeks and some change. One team, though, that might not get the coverage that it deserves are the Golden State Valkyries. They're now sitting at 7-6. I understand that that's not necessarily, championship contender kind of record, but 7-6 is a better record than Asia Wilson's Aces, and it's a better record than Caitlin Clark's Fever. And I know there's a lot of nuance to that, and that the Aces and the Fever have been dealing with injuries, but when you look at the standings, the Golden State Valkyries are above those two teams with 2 MVP contenders. They have won now 5 straight games at home, including a home win on Thursday over the Fever, where they held Caitlin Clark to 3 of 14 from the field and just 11 points. That is tied for her lowest point total of the entire season. Cass, we went into this season not expecting a lot from the Golden State Valkyries. They don't have a star-studded roster. They don't have that one bona fide superstar. It is, with all due respect to that team, a team and a roster made up of role players. But now we look at the Valkyries that have struggled in the beginning half of the season. Now it looks like, could they potentially be figuring some things out?
I think they're a playoff team. For sure. If I had to sit down and like figure out my teams right now, like they're making the playoffs. Hopefully they will get a home game in front of that crowd in the new playoff format. I was with you. Overlooked the Valkyries. Was not high on them. It's almost the opposite of why we didn't like them. Like, their ability as a team to understand how to do the little things, right? Like, play a role. No one's a star here. Just gritty defense. Get on the boards. Like, different players are scoring every single game. And even without, like, 4 players at Eurobasket. I mean, Letitia Amahir coming in and doing what she did against the Fever, incredible game by her. So this team of 6 women, absolutely figuring it out. I see them making the playoffs for sure.
I don't disagree. And they don't play a sexy brand of basketball. Like, when you sit down and you watch a New York Liberty basketball game, that is sexy. That is threes, and that is high scoring, and that is, like, offensive firepower. Golden State, they don't do anything overly flashy. They don't do anything that is going to make a SportsCenter top 10 highlight reel. but they're just effective. It was so interesting listening to Natalie Nakase's press conference after that win over the Fever. And she was like, look, we just studied her film. We saw what she likes to do. We, found her habits and where she feels comfortable. And we just didn't let her get in that position. It's effective. It's not anything crazy or over the top. She's not reinventing the wheel. It's just good, gritty, and effective basketball.
I think Natalie has a case for Coach of the Year. And I think the job that her and Ohema did and that entire Golden State squad to go through the expansion draft, to bring in all this international talent, like they stuck to their guns on who they wanted, on the culture that they wanted. When they were asked about not bringing in a franchise player, not being super active in free agency, they were just like, we want it to happen naturally.
Yeah.
And even at this point, I don't know who that is, but now I don't care. Because it's just everyone stepping up when it needs to be stepped up. I think about a lot, like Kate Martin was called the glue at Iowa, and of course Kate Martin's on this team. Everyone is the glue creating a solid Valkyries team. And shout out to their Chase Center fans because they're actually leading the league in attendance, and those games sound incredible.
I'm with you 1,000%. I think Natalie Nakase should be in the Coach of the Year conversation. And I think Coach of the Year, like MVP, it can have a few different definitions. Is it the coach of the best team? Some years, yes, it is. But I think Coach of the Year should also be which coach can do the most with the least. And there is zero doubt that where we stand today when we're recording this podcast on June 23rd, that Natalie Nakase has done more with less than any other coach in the WNBA. I also think, just looking forward, what the Valkyries have been able to do, not just on the court, in the way that they've been finding ways to win games, and now they're, shooting up the standings, and if they can, make the playoffs like you mentioned, but also the way they've been able to pack the house. And look, basketball is not new in the Bay Area, but it's not easy.
I think they have a team called, are they the Warriors?
Warriors.
I think I've heard of them.
Huh.
Yeah. The men. Okay. Gotcha.
I wonder if they have any good players on that team.
Nah.
I don't know, maybe. We'll have to Google it after the show. But yes, exactly. Like, you have the Golden State freaking Warriors. Obviously, that area is not new to basketball, but building a team, a new franchise in any city isn't easy. It takes time. I live in Nashville. The Tennessee Titans came over to Nashville from Houston, and it took like 10 to 15 years for that team to really feel like it was part of the fabric of this city. And we're talking about football in the state of Tennessee. That's not a new concept at all. So for the Valkyries, in a league that's growing, but is obviously not the same level of investment or, not as large of a fan base as the NFL or Major League Baseball or the NBA or so on and so forth, for the Valkyries to be able to establish a fan base as passionate and invested as they have, I think is such a good sign for future expansion in this league. Obviously, we're expanding to Portland, you're expanding to Toronto. What I thought was going to maybe hurt expansion, the way that the Valkyries built their team, was without a ton of superstars, without any big splashy kind of, players that they acquired at the beginning, at the inception of that franchise. I think they've now become part of the blueprint for what Portland and Toronto and future WNBA cities should do in the future.
I think what is concerning, though, is I don't know that these expansion teams are fully following the blueprint. I would have to go back and look at the date, but I feel like it was before All-Star that the Valkyries had merch available, right? Like they picked just a fun color. And the Toronto Tempo do have a name, and they do have merch.
Portland
had
the Portland team
from the Portland team. The Portland team who might be the Fire, who knows. I'm sure we'll get that soon, but Golden State did an incredible job of learning that they were going to have a team and just flood the zone, essentially. Like, get out in the community, get out in media outlets nationally, get their merchandise out, all these flashy things that, to your point, set an incredible blueprint for what can come in the W.
Yeah, call it, you just love the league, and everyone was so excited for the league to be in that city. Call it, a team that everyone can rally around. It kind of feels like a team full of underdogs. Everyone loves Kate Martin, like everyone loves Caitlyn Chen. What's not to love? Just everything about it has felt very, very easy to root for, because I know I can speak for myself when I say I am rooting for the Golden State Valkyries in every single sense of the word. All right, let's move on to the fourth quarter. The Liberty have now lost 3 of their last 4 games. The Aces, they just broke a 3-game losing streak, but they were on a 3-game skid nonetheless. Now, the Aces were without A'ja Wilson. She was in concussion protocol. The Liberty will now be without Jonquel Jones. Leonie Fibic is at Eurobasket, so she is gone. Sabrina Ionescu is out with neck tightness against the Storm, so TBD on how long the Liberty will be without Sabrina Ionescu. So it's not like either of these teams were at full strength when they entered that skid, but nonetheless, they were. When we look at the Liberty and we look at the Aces, where on the panic meter should those fan bases be with the way that the Liberty and the Aces have kind of skidded down the stretch?
What's my panic meter? Like 0 to 10?
You can invent it. This is totally a choose your own adventure with the panic meter.
The Liberty panic meter is pretty low. It's like I have a bonfire going and I need to pay attention to it so it doesn't get out of control. What concerns me about the Liberty is Jonquel Jones.
Yeah.
Her being out 4 to 6 weeks is problematic. This is a team that for the past 2 years has constantly talked about, if JJ gets a double-double, we win the game. Mm-hmm. Well, JJ's not going to get a double-double for 4 to 6 weeks. So what does that look like? And then in addition to that, like, not to always bring it back to the standings, but you don't want to lose too much ground here. Mm-hmm. I'm not as concerned about them. The Aces is like, my bonfire is starting to get big and maybe there's like a tree.
Oh no.
I just, they were having problems before A'ja Wilson's injury. Mm-hmm. I think the thing about the Aces is A'ja Wilson alone is not going to save them. Certainly we've seen like better things from Jewel Lloyd, but they've got to figure out other ways to score and get their defense together, because that's Becky Hammond's big thing. And certainly she's called out effort a few times.
Which is concerning.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one thing to just not be good enough, but it's a completely different story. And you start to, question the integrity of the locker room when your head coach is calling out the team for not giving 100%.
Yeah.
And that's not something that can change overnight.
No. And it feels like something that can't even change in one game, right? Like, okay, I saw the effort in this game after I called you out. Is she going to have to call them out again? Is this going to bubble back? Is this based on something, as you said, like in the locker room under the surface that's going on? Like, and it can be dramatic, or it can be something as simple as a player is going through something in their personal life and like can't get over it, right? Mm-hmm. There's like a wide range.
Right. And it starts to, you start to think too, like, okay, if the message doesn't get through after you get called out by your head coach, does your head coach have to keep calling you out? Well, at that point, that becomes very ineffective. It just becomes commonplace. It just becomes something that either, becomes a continuous message that it stops becoming impactful, and two, it starts to, and I'm not saying that this is happening, but if that's a message that Becky Hammon has to continue to portray, well, then at that point, when does it start to build tension between the team and the coach? When does the team just get pissed off that their coach keeps calling them out for effort? So yeah. I'm with you that I think the Liberty and the Aces and their respective skids, I think, should be talked about in 2 completely different ways. The Liberty are not at full strength. Do they have to figure out how to win games without Jonquel Jones? Yes, absolutely they do. But if they do, and I feel like this team, with the amount of talent that it has, and it has shown that it knows how to win basketball games, obviously coming off of a championship season last year, I feel like when they figure it out, then they're going to be that much stronger of a team when Jonquel Jones comes back and is healthy. The Aces, on the other hand, I don't think that this is just a temporary something. I think this is something that has been plaguing them for a decent bit of the season. Obviously, A'ja Wilson is still A'ja Wilson, but this Aces team is not the Aces that we've seen over the better part of the last 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, there was already a little bit of a drop-off last year, and then you kind of have personnel changes. They did defeat the Fever over the weekend, which was impressive just because of the way they came back. And Wilson bounced back from, I think it was like 2 points in the first half. Aaliyah Nye has been playing good minutes for them, but beyond that, like they're also saddled with kind of depth injuries. Cheyenne Parker-Tyus and Megan Gustafson are out. They don't have, to your point, the depth to maybe plug and play fix things that the Liberty can with Niara Sabali, and those types of players, Kennedy Burke.
Yeah. So if the Liberty can figure things out, I still view the Liberty as a championship contender. I do not, where things stand right now, view the Aces as a championship contender. But it's June 23rd. Whole lot of basketball left to be played. Okay, let's look ahead to next week. Friday is a stacked day in the WNBA. First game at 7:30 Eastern time, Minnesota at Atlanta. Minnesota, one of the best teams, if not the best team in the league, with one of the best, if not the best players in the league on the road at a red-hot Atlanta Dream team. But at that same time, 7:30 Eastern time, we have Caitlin Clark and Paige Bueckers and their first head-to-head matchup in the WNBA. Back-to-back first-round picks, two of the biggest stars in this league. Cass, your thoughts on this one?
This is a treat for all fans, right? But like longtime fans who have been paying attention to these two since they were the number 1 recruit, Paige, and the number 4 recruit, Caitlin. They met in the Sweet 16, what was it, like 2021? I think they've only faced off twice in college. So it's been a rare matchup. Actually, 2 point guards going against each other, so we can talk about it position to position. Certainly, like the Wings hope that they become what the Fever are this year. I think they're on a longer track. But just a fun one that, as you said, like crazy, we haven't seen it a lot.
It feels like we should see that matchup a lot, right? But to finally get these two at this level, and the Fever and the Wings are in two very different places. The Fever feel like they are in win now mode with the big swings that they made this past offseason. The Wings are very much so still trying to figure out their identity. They are still very much so building for the future. But so much of the popularity of the WNBA, and it's seen over the past couple of years, is because of the brands and the weight that individual personalities carry. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's two bigger examples of that than Caitlin Clark, obviously, and Paige Bueckers. What she did at UConn, the brand that she built in women's basketball, going back to her freshman year at UConn, and now the prowess that she's brought into the WNBA. I mean, it is a battle of not heavyweights in the sense that these are two championship contenders, but battle of the heavyweights of household names and recognizable figures in Caitlin Clark and Paige Bueckers.
And the last time they met was that berth in the Final Four, right? 2 years ago?
Ooh, it was. And that was an awfully controversially called little game. I don't think that there is any love lost between the two.
Certainly not the fan bases, right? Like,
yeah. Oh, yeah, certainly. Yeah. And those two, like Caitlin Clark and Paige Bueckers, I think are like the best examples. Obviously, there are so many examples in this league, but are two wonderful examples of true competitors, that these two want to win, that they will do whatever it takes to win. So I know that maybe some bad taste maybe lingering in Paige Bueckers' mouth after that Final Four loss to Caitlin Clark and Iowa to get to the national championship game. And I know that just the two certified competitors going head to head, it's going to be one of the good ones, absolutely. But that's not the only games on Friday. We also have the Liberty and the Mercury tipping off on Friday as well, the number 2 and number 3 in the standings in the WNBA. And then on Saturday, we have the Battle of the Rookies. We get to see Paige Bueckers yet again, but this time they host Kiki Iriafen and SoniaCitron, two other players that are in the Rookie of the Year conversation. It's so hyperbolic to say, like, it all comes down to this, that Rookie of the Year comes down to this one. But we're going to see 3 of the best rookies in the WNBA go head-to-head with Kiki and Sonia and the Washington Mystics, and then Paige Bueckers and the Wings.
I think when it comes down to it, when you sit down and fill out a ballot for all of these things, head-to-head does matter a little bit if your players are tight. And certainly for this rookie class, I mean, has shown out. Washington has been impressive. It'll be exciting to see all these players on the floor.
Yeah, No doubt. We've got a blast of an upcoming week in the WNBA. The Commissioner's Cup final is going down. We've got so many great matchups. So keep it right here. Yahoo Sports will have all of your WNBA coverage. So tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell Sophie Cunningham, because she's the biggest name in the W this week. Tell everybody that you know that we're here every single week breaking down all things WNBA.